My name is LauraTKelso. I'm the creator of this series. I have a specialized real estate brokerage that works with primarily older adults. And instead of simply coming in and selling your home or condo, we're able to also assist you with every aspect of that transition from long before you decide to do it until you're safely settled in your new place, your house is prepped, all your items have been gone through, and your home or condo is sold. So any of you who have moved in the last few years know that's a very, very big process. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quickly have each of our speakers introduce themselves before I do a short introduction, starting with Kellie.
Hi, I'm Kellie Johnson, and I own Blue Moon Estate Sales. It is a franchise. Although I've been doing this for a long time in the Lansing area, we now own Blue Moon Estate Sales, Lansing, Grand Rapids, Lakeshore, and we're most recently this week we'll be signing papers for Washtenaw and Livingston County. So we'll have a big ribbon across the state. We do in-home estate sales, pack and moves, auctions, and we sell all of your stuff.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kim Madsen. I am the marketing director for Goodwill of Greater Grand Rapids.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Susie Marsh with Susie's Organization Solutions, and I've been a professional organizer for almost 18 years now and a licensed social worker. And I know you've seen me before. I'm back.
Yes, Susie has been a friend of the series since the beginning, and a huge part of my personal business, also working together with many, many clients over the years. So it's been such a pleasure to get to build these resources over the years. So today we're going to talk about the realities of really what happens as we start to accumulate things over time. So I've talked in the past how when you look historically at the size of homes and the number of people who lived in them, over the last 100 years, the size of our homes have almost tripled, almost quadrupled, and the number of people who are living there has generally been cut in half. And the amazing part is that by having these larger homes, we tend to accumulate stuff over time. We all do it. And any of you that have heard me in the past or heard me speak in other places know that this is a topic that I am very, very passionate about. And the reason is that you've heard the term, what goes up must come down. Well, I want to do a little take on that and just say, what goes in must come out. Now, it may not come out from you, but at some point it's got to come out. So if you would raise your hand for any of you who have in the last few years ever helped move a grandparent, a family member, or a parent who has either passed or had to go into any version of senior living after many years in a home. Raise your hand. It was a lot of work, right? Yeah, I have been with many families and watched them break down physically, break down in tears emotionally as they're cleaning out homes of their loved ones that were very, very full. It's a challenge. I know myself and my team, we go in alongside like what Lisa does. We physically help people go through those items, sort those items, decide what needs to be done with those items. We come home tired, we come home sweaty, we come home sore. It's a lot of hard work. And understand that in today's world, people are marketing to us constantly. The number of marketing messages that we now receive on any given day through our phones, through television, it has increased exponentially over the years. And just really be cognizant of the fact that people marketing to us to buy stuff and to store that stuff is a multi-billion-dollar business. And so I'm not against the idea of having items that bring you joy. We want our homes to be welcoming places, welcoming and safe places for ourselves, our families, our friends. If you desire to age in place, we're here to help you do that. I may be a realtor who helps people downsize, but if you tell me that your goal is to age in place, I'm going to first help you age in place because that is the right thing to do. Now, in addition to that, I also, on a very regular basis, move people out of their forever homes. So I do always encourage people to make a contingency plan if you do need to move. But at the same time, this whole series is never about telling you what to do, but it's about encouraging you to ask yourself the tough questions and encouraging you to be proactive. I'm not asking you to live a Spartan life in your home. I want you to look around your homes, your condos, wherever you live, and really have some thoughts about the things that you use on a daily basis and some of those items that you thought about passing on, when that might happen. It's so much more powerful to be able to pass on items to family when you can tell the stories of those items and see the people taking those items and gaining joy from those items while you're alive instead of that happening sometime later after you pass. So this is just all about encouragement. And so I've talked many times about this idea of the emotional aspect of saving. We save things for a whole lot of reasons. A lot of times they are emotional. They take us back to times in our life that may be different looking from what they are now. Times when we might have had a career that we no longer have. We might have had young children running around that are now living across the country. We tend to accumulate these items, and then even the things that aren't necessarily emotional, but if any of you besides me have half-finished craft projects sitting around your house, raise your hand. All right. You're not alone. Whether it's craft projects, chemicals, things that could be recycled, things that have broken years ago that you thought you would fix, whatever that is, the more that you can proactively start to downsize those items, I believe there is a freedom in that for you and someday possibly for your families if you ever need to move. So today we're not going to focus as much on the reasons to get rid of things. I'm just going to tell you there's lots of them. There's lots of great reasons to get rid of stuff. Today we're really going to focus very specifically on the how and the where do you take them and who can help you do that. So I'm going to start with Kellie from Kellie's and get to my questions. All right, so Kellie, even though we met just recently, I know that you've been in the estate sale business for many, many years. So please give me a little bit of history on how you got started and how your business has evolved to the place where it is today.
It's a really long story because I've been selling other people's stuff for, in the spring will be 20 years. And I started as a consignment store, a resale store, because I wanted to own a store because I liked fashion and I liked stuff, and quickly realized I didn't have enough money to stock a store. So I went into a consignment store one day and said, oh, I can sell other people's stuff. That gives me a lot of joy too because people have a lot of cool stuff. So 20 years ago, I opened a little resale store, and now it's a 40-employee, 25,000 square foot resale center that helps people across the state sell their stuff.
Wonderful. So let's talk about the trends today in estate sales. What are people buying and what are the items that are most challenging to unload?
Oh, I'm going to make some of you so upset. So the things in people's houses that they spent the most money on are their dining room set. It's beautiful. It was $15,000. It has a beautiful china cabinet, and it's oak and cherry. And I'm like, when people say that, I get a big knot in my stomach because I have to tell them that so many times those things are literally worth negative $250 because that's how much it will cost to get it out when it doesn't sell at the estate sale. So I say that afterwards is that, but we're going to sell your silverware, your bath towels, your clothing, all the stuff that you never bought to resell, and it's going to make up to take the hit on the things that you think are the most money. Grandma's china, like people start telling me their lists of the things that they have in their house, and I'm just like, oh, but it's the stuff that you don't even understand that's going to be worth the money to make it worth doing the estate sale anyways. So I have to break your heart, but then I always lift you back up and teach you how we're going to make money selling all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's generally a lot of the practical stuff that makes sense. So one of the first discussions that I have with many of my clients who are actually moving is the fact that an estate sale only makes sense if you have enough of the right stuff. And some of my clients do, and often the clients don't. It just really, really depends. And so, Kelly, please give us some guidelines for what you want to see in a house before committing to do an estate sale at someone's home, and then maybe even some possibilities if they don't.
Okay. So things have really taken a shift in the last couple of years in the estate sale world because we used to do estate sales. You know, you'd want to be able to get to around $4,000 or $5,000 worth of stuff to make it worth having the estate sale for the client and for the company. And nowadays, that number is more up in the $8,000 range for it too. So I have to tell people, if we're not going to get to 8, you're going to sell your stuff, and really you're just leveraging your stuff to move out so that you can get to your real money, which is in your real estate. So if you don't have enough to make sense, or I call it the recipe, which is location, parking, are you in a neighborhood, are you too far out in the country? So there's a lot of scenarios where an estate sale just doesn't make sense. Some people just don't want 300 or 500 people walking through their house. So we, several years ago, came up with a program called Pack, Move, and Sell. And because we have the 25,000 square foot resale center, we take a team of people in, pack every single room into, sell it at Kellie's, sell it in our auction, which is collectible things, higher dollar things. We sell hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry, things like that that can gain your money from losing all the other places. So if it needs to go to donation or if it needs to go to recycling, so we pack the whole house into those categories, and then a moving team comes in and takes everything that we packed to where it needs to go. So it's an invoice for the packing and moving piece, and then you make a percentage back of everything that we sell. So it's a less intrusive way to empty a house, and they're becoming extremely popular to do. And labor these days is so expensive that by the time you spend 3 or 4 days with a team of people pulling everything out, pricing it, staging it, picturing it, marketing it, having people the day of the sale, there's so much labor involved that you really have to have a lot of stuff to make that make sense anymore.
Yeah, we had recently done one on my mom's house, and it was, we weren't able to find an estate sale company that could do it in the time frame that we needed, and so we did it on our own, and many, many hours of work, and we pretty much broke even. And that was about it. But, you know, the end result, like Kelly said, is for most of you, if you own a home or a condo, the financial value is in the real estate more than in the stuff. If you can get any money from the stuff, that's just a bonus. So let's talk about the best practices for families who desire to have an estate sale and they feel that they have enough of the right type of things. Is it helpful for them to pre-organize or throw out any items they think are no good? Or what would you like to ask of families who are considering an estate sale?
First thing is to call the estate sale company, hopefully me, as soon as you know you're thinking about doing something, because I can save you so much time and heartache, because really all I need from a client is for you to pack the things that you want to keep. Everything else stays exactly where it is. You don't need to get things ready. You don't need to pull things out. You just need to concentrate on what you want to keep. And then people's like, but what about my clothes? And what about my, do you want to keep your clothes? Well, I want some of them. Okay, take your clothes that you want to keep, leave the rest where they are. If you start helping or donating or giving your stuff to the neighbors because you think, nobody's going to want this, we do that after the sale. So in this day and age, when you have to have a lot of substantial things to sell to make it worth it, every 50-cent dollar, $2, $5 adds up to enough to do the sale. So don't start taking loads of stuff to Goodwill. Don't start giving the next door neighbor all your lawnmower and your things. Those are things that you're going to need to leverage being able to do the sale. So then we do the sale. Then after the sale, now we can donate, give away, get the house the rest of the way empty. So that's the biggest thing, is that people get so nervous about what am I going to do with all this stuff, and really all you need to care about is what you want to keep. And then we do all the rest. If you start helping us, it's not helping us.
Yep. We kind of do the same concept when we've got somebody who is moving from a longtime residence. Sometimes they're not even moving to a place that's smaller, but often they're moving someplace that's a little bit smaller. It is so overwhelming to look at a house that you may have been in for 50 or 60 years and think, what do I do with all this stuff? And we encourage people to simply focus on the items that bring you joy and that you keep and use on an everyday basis. If you can focus on those things, then many people in this room, the team that I've built, people like Kellie, people like Susie, we can then assist you with all of the rest once you have chosen your items. So that is such an important point. So I was super excited to hear that you offer all these other options for people who may not make sense for them to have an estate sale at their house. So can you dive a little bit deeper into how you do some of the more high dollar items and what it looks like when you do those auctions?
So we have a whole cataloging auction department in our building, and it's probably our fastest growing sector, because when you're dealing with people that have true collections and things that they've kept for a long time that actually do have value, you have to put them out to where the market is going to have the end user bid against each other to buy them. So we've started doing these auctions, and they're wildly successful for people with collections. And while you're still living is the best time to meet with someone like me, because I call it collection cataloging, where we're going to put your catalog together while you're still living, because about the stuff. So we kind of get all of that ready, and then when you're ready to sell it, whether you're hopefully still here, but if you want to hang on to it and sell it, after you've passed, somebody knows the value in it. So we catalog the items into auctions. We use 2 platforms, so the platforms bid against each other. It's wild, it's fun. If you're doing it while you're living, it's really fun because you get to watch it. Like when you have stuff in the auction, you can see what we're doing. And so that's a better platform for trying to sell. Let's see, for instance, we're getting ready to do a guy that has a huge Star Wars collection, just like the coolest stuff. And so we're going to put that out to bid, because how much of that are you going to be able to sell in Linden, Michigan? You have to put it out where people bid, so that, we ship stuff all over the world. So if you have high dollar stuff, it's a better, sometimes we'll use it at an estate sale to draw a crowd, but we'll put prices on it that we know we can get online, and if somebody locally is willing to pay for it, awesome. But if they're not, you don't have to, and a lot of estate sale companies would have to just liquidate it, because what else are they going to do? We don't do that. We'll pack it up and sell it from our auction or from our estates or from our warehouse store, so that you don't have to just liquidate it at a cheap price. So we really can put your stuff wherever it's going to sell for the most.
So let's talk about the estate sale itself, and how do you educate your clients prior to an estate sale about what they can expect, and also even the type of accounting that they might get after they have the sale, how long does it take to get paid, and so forth. Because I think one of the most surprising things I've seen in the last few years is that when you have an estate sale, it's surprising how many items are still left. And sometimes they're not the things that you would have thought were going to be left.
Typically, I would be able to tell people what probably will be left in the end and what won't be. But so to expect at the estate sale, first thing is you don't get to be there. Break people's hearts there a little bit, because if you imagine in your house, first of all, if you're still living, which 90% of the sales we do, the people are still living. They're just downsizing, they're moving. And so people, the public immediately thinks whoever lived there is dead. So if you're there, they're like, wait a minute. And then the second part is, if you went to a estate sale, would you like the person who owns the stuff to be there watching you? It's awkward. It's very weird. People think they're not emotionally attached to their stuff, but when you see people walking through your house and going through your things and saying, why would someone paint their wall this color? And you're like, you want to say, hey, wait a minute, this is my wall. And it just makes for a really awkward, emotional being. It just is a bad thing. So I like to tell people at an estate sale, people don't have to come there. People want to come to an estate sale, which makes for a really cool atmosphere. It's fun. They find things. They don't buy things unless they loved them or they're going to love them. So you just have to kind of take a deep breath and know that your stuff is going to go someplace where it's going to continue to be loved, most likely, or turned into something else, and you have to be okay with that. Even if everything in your house, think of everything that you're going to sell, if 80% of it sold, which is a pretty good point for an estate sale, there's still 20% of hundreds of things that are left, so it's still a lot. So we work with companies that come in after us. They give a price to get everything out. They sweep and vacuum every floor. We even offer a spring cleaning services if you want that. So literally, I just tell people, go away for the weekend, go spend some time with family, try not to think about it. I'll give you an update at the end of each day so that you know about where we were financially. We have a system for our checkout, which most companies don't have, it's a category. So we usually pick 5 or 6 for each house: furniture, jewelry, garage, like the places where you have the most money. Then you'll get this much dollars sold in furniture, this much sold in that. Usually, if you say, how much did the mid-century dressers sell for? We usually know that. It's just because you just know that. We don't discount things like other companies do because we can sell it later. Well, we have sales. Don't think we don't discount, because we do. But we don't do 50% and get rid of it at the end. So you get an accounting of a spreadsheet of how much sold for this. And if you really want to know how much something sold, I can do that. We sell cars. The only thing I don't sell is automatic firearms, is pretty much the only thing I don't do. And I work with a company for that. So you'll get an accounting. It's not the spoon was this much and the hairdryer was that much. That's just like, that can't be. But if you want to know, I tell people, pick 5 or 6 things that you really want to know how much they sold for, and we'll keep track of it, just because it's fun to know.
And how long does it generally take before they would receive a check after a sale ends?
So it's a little different with us. So at the end of the weekend, the money goes in the safe, and then I count it Sunday night or Monday. I'll tell you what your numbers were. We'll reconcile that part. I'll send that to you in an email. Then you'll kind of get to pick. Do you want to get paid now, or do you want to ride out the auction, the stuff that's in the store? I'm open to it either way. You'll usually get your reconciliation within 3 or 4 days. The check for that first part can go out within the first 7 to 10 days. Once you go through it, we kind of let the dust settle a little bit. Sometimes we're still collecting money from people. Sometimes I know lots of people, so they might say, hey, I wanted that. If it didn't sell, and it didn't, so now I've got to collect their money and let them go pick it up. So you have to let the dust settle a little bit. So long story short, 7 to 10 days for the first round, or you can let it ride till everything's done. I'm not going anywhere. I've been doing it for 20 years, so I won't skip town with your money, I promise.
That's good to know. So lastly, since the majority of our audience is not moving, tell us how anyone in this room or people that they know, if they had things that they wanted to sell, what's kind of the best way to get a hold of you, and what does that process look like of meeting with a person to see their items?
Sometimes we do pre-sell or start the process with people. especially with jewelry, because I don't leave that at the estate sale anyway. We have 2 full-time jewelers that work at my store. So there's things that I know we're just not going to sell at the sale, so we can start working on those things ahead of time. The other thing would be, oh my gosh, I lost my thought. What was the question? All the way?
How would you meet with somebody who wanted to
Oh, yeah.
sell items?
Sorry. So the sooner, my biggest advice to anybody that is going to be needing to do this sooner than later is to get something on paper to plan. Because the other part of what I do is attorneys' offices hire me when the family's fighting over your stuff. And it is awful. And if you would just take the time to write it down, Sarah wants this, Jimmy wants that, these things are gifted, these things are part of their distribution. Then I go in, and sometimes they still argue, and they're spending your money with somebody like me to make it, it's black and white. Like if you have children and they're sharing in the distribution, if he wants the car and she wants the spoon, it's black and white. And so if they get along because it's in mom and dad's handwriting and it's been with an attorney, there's no issues. But if you don't do that and you leave it up to your children who you think get along really well, when money's involved, it's a whole different ballgame. So get it in writing, spend some time and figure it out, make sure they both understand. And I tell people, let's get a list of the expensive things. Let's tell them, if you fight over my stuff, I will come back. And I will, because I see it tear families apart all the time. And they spend thousands of dollars of your money fighting over stuff because you didn't plan ahead. Big advice. Promise, take that advice.
Okay, who in the audience knows what I'm talking about when I say our grab and go binder? All right, so some of my regulars, does anybody have one that they could hold up? I should have Sherry hold one up. The grab and go binder is something that we have out at, I have some at the Kelso Homes table, and it's just a booklet that is designed for families to fill out together on all of their desires, all of their important stuff, all of their legal documents. We do give those out for free. We also have things on your end of life plans and how to talk about those. So please feel free to stop by our table and we will happily give those to you. And when we run out, we will print more because there's a lot of printing involved. So I don't want to just hand them out to everybody if everybody doesn't want them. But the more that you can document your items, like she said, the better. So Kelly, thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to Kim in just a second. As I go through people's homes and I see their treasured items, and when we can pass those on to anyone that I know that will, put that to good use in one way or another, I know that it makes the recipient happy and it makes the giver happy. And so I happen to, Goodwill is one of my very favorite places to both give to and to shop at. I consider it my personal storage unit. So we're going to move on to Kim. Really, it is. I always think if I'm trying to decide whether or not to save something, if I could find one at Goodwill if I need it, there's my answer. I don't necessarily need to keep it myself and store it. All right, so there's likely none of you in this room who's not familiar with Goodwill. But there's really a lot more to the Goodwill stores and to the mission that most people are not aware of. So, Kim, can you talk to us more about, one, how did Goodwill come into existence, and just a bit about its organization and structure?
Hello, okay. Goodwill was founded in 1902 by Edgar J. Helms in Boston. Helms believed in giving people a hand up, not a hand out. He collected used household goods and clothing discarded in wealthier areas of the city and trained and hired people to repair and mend those goods and then resell them. The money from these sales helped fund job training programs and provided opportunities for people who needed it. So I work for Goodwill of Greater Grand Rapids, which was founded in 1966, thanks to a local group led by Fred Meyer. We are a 501c3 nonprofit and part of the Goodwill Industries International, but we operate independently with our own board and leadership. This allows us to focus on the specific needs of our local communities. The donations that we receive help fund the job training and placement services. In fact, 90 cents of every dollar spent in our stores support these programs. So across Michigan, we have 10 Goodwills, fun fact, if you didn't know. They all serve their own region.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because certainly for any of you who have traveled across the country, going to a Goodwill in Michigan and going to a Goodwill in Arizona are going to look differently, and you're going to have different items and different styles, and that can be really cool, but part of that revolves around different needs of the people who live in that area. Yep. So you've worked for Goodwill for a number of years, and including working very specifically with their workforce development program. So please share more about these programs and the impact that you have seen personally.
Yeah. So I've actually worked for Goodwill for 17 years. The first 8 was in our mission programs. I've seen firsthand how lives are impacted through our services. Goodwill helps people with disabilities, with mental health challenges, criminal backgrounds, at-risk youth, underemployed, and unemployed. We also offer specialized programs like the Certified Nurse Aid training that you saw on the video today, which empowers people to start careers in healthcare, which is a big deal in the Grand Rapids-Kent County area. There's a lot of need for that. Goodwill's impact goes far beyond just finding jobs. It helps build stronger families and more stable communities. I've seen individuals gain independence, secure meaningful employment, and support their loved ones through the skills and confidence that they've gained. With the right support, lives truly change for the better. I would encourage you all to go to our website too. We have success stories on there, or if you follow us on social, we post them on there as well.
Yeah, I went to your website in preparing for this, and we talked through a lot of things. There was actually some really, really cool information on there, including like a whole longer video on the history of Goodwill, which I thought was really fascinating, and I didn't realize that it had started so long ago. So I've heard that there can be some misconceptions about Goodwill in terms of it being this large for-profit entity and that people should give to other smaller donation places. So can you speak a little bit about how Goodwill is actually supported? And I know you did mention that 90% of the money that's raised goes directly to your program. So can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so unfortunately that's true. There's a lot of common misconceptions, especially on social media. Again, we are a nonprofit, not a for-profit. I mentioned how we operate locally, and that's to fit the needs of the individuals in the local communities. So each Goodwill kind of tailors their programs that they have available to those communities. So again, like 90 cents of the dollar goes to support the mission. So you should feel good when you donate and shop because it is going towards helping others in need. Another misconception I'm sure many of you have probably seen online is the rumor about a CEO named Mark Curran making millions of dollars. That's simply false. There is no CEO that's ever worked for Goodwill by that name, and no one's making millions. So we do have, as a nonprofit, we have our 990 form, the financial information on our website, so that is public for everyone to see as well.
But Kim, if it's on the internet, it must be true, right?
Yep, no.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of what can actually be donated and give us some do's and don'ts along with the insight on what is done with the items that can't be sold, such as clothing that might have stains or rips, or even those obsolete electronics.
Yeah, so at Goodwill, we obviously accept a wide variety of items: clothing, shoes, accessories, books, toys, small appliances, household goods, But even if you're missing a shoe, like you have a rip in your sweater, we can still take that. We are able to recycle the items. So we have our recycling operations actually in Granville. We partner with various organizations to recycle textiles, electronics, and other materials so that we can make sure that they're reused or repurposed whenever possible. In fact, last year, we diverted over 18 million pounds of items from landfills. There are certain items that we cannot accept. I want to make sure to mention that. We cannot accept mattresses, upholstered furniture, very large appliances, hazardous waste, and tube TVs, if those are still around. So the reason they pose safety risks and require resources that are better used for our job training and placement programs. So there are some other, you can check with your local recycling locations to see if they can take them, or maybe World Mission and some other places might be able to.
Yeah, and Susie will talk a little bit more on her end on some of the specifics of other places, because often there are places that will accept those items. You just have to know where those are. So one of the hardest parts of my job is assisting people in getting items physically out of their home, even when they're ready to part with them. Because like I said, a lot of the items are heavy, large. More and more donation places are no longer doing pickups, or will only do a pickup from the garage, which is challenging in itself. So what has Goodwill done to solve this dilemma?
So while we don't offer home pickups, we have partnered with a company called Resupply. It's a veteran-run organization to help. So they will come directly to your home. They'll pick up any and all items. Any items that are eligible to be donated to us will be donated to us. Anything else will go to other organizations, or they will ethically dispose of them. They can go upstairs, they can disassemble furniture, so they can do a lot of things. There is a small fee for the service, and it covers their operating costs, but it's much less than you would pay if you were doing it with a moving company or a junk hauling company. In the past 2 years, we've been working with them, and we've had over 1,500 pickups with no complaints, so that's really good. And if you are able to get any items, we do have a lot of locations in the area, so we offer a drive-through donation area, and if you need assistance with anything, we do have donation clerks that if you just ask for help, they can help you get those items out of your car.
Awesome. That is very, very helpful.
Resupply. It's on our website, and when you get to their site, you can fill it out, like what kinds of items that you might need help with. And when you do that, it gives you like the cost of what it would be.
So I was really surprised to hear about your online store where shoppers can actually find items of greater value and the huge variety of the things that I saw. So tell us more about how that works.
Yeah, so Shop Goodwill is actually the first e-commerce auction site created, owned, and operated by a nonprofit. There's over 130 Goodwills that list the items on that site, including Goodwill of Greater Grand Rapids. So you can find a wide variety of items like art, antiques, collectibles, jewelry. So what makes it unique is that that also funds our mission. You can shop for locally in Grand Rapids if you wanted to shop at our items, and then we also have free pickup. Otherwise, you can do shipping. And this is a really cool way for us to reach other people. I mean, online shopping is very popular. It's also a way for us to get some of the high-value items and maximize the donations to help our mission.
Just like what Kellie had talked about, is that idea of, a lot of times these items have value, but they don't necessarily have the value when you're, need to find a buyer right here. But by being able to put those things out online and find the right person who will pay the most money, it benefits everyone. So
yeah, and a lot of the items are, it's auction based, so we don't necessarily set the price. It's just based on what people are willing to pay. So that's kind of, you can get into a little trouble there. I've bid on some things just to win, but, you know.
So once upon a time, donations could give you a sizable deduction on your taxes. And now the average person really would never donate enough to benefit on their taxes in any substantial way. So if you could tell everyone the best reasons that you feel that they should donate their items, what would those be?
Yeah, so you're right. So the tax benefits may not be as significant as they once were, but the real value of donating to Goodwill is the difference that it makes in people's lives and the planet. Your donations help individuals in the community find jobs, build careers, and support their families. At the same time, we're keeping things out of landfills, which obviously is phenomenal. So I think your donations, they offer hope, they offer opportunity and a better future for both people and our planet.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's give Kim a round of applause. And I'm just going to top that off with, once again, all the other million reasons for all of you sitting out in the audience to lighten up your homes, which in my mind, when you lighten up your house, it generally lightens up your mind. I know it does for me, and it just feels better all the way around. So we're going to move on to Susie. So Susie Marsh, of course, has been a staple of this series for a while. She's been a professional organizer for a very long time. And she's going to talk more specifically about what to do with some of these things. So let's start by taking the questions that you would ask somebody at an initial meeting to determine how you're going to help them move forward with getting their home or condo more organized.
So the social worker in me always will look at goals. So that's the first thing that I'm going to ask you is, what's your goal? Where are we going with this? Is it just to make your space more fun and functional for you? Is it safety? Is it where you are going to be moving down the road and you're just ready to take the next step? So that's the main question I ask too is, are you ready? So then we go from there and we have a nice discussion.
Okay, so let's dig into those emotional ties a little bit. So, because of course we've talked about the fact that there is both mental work and physical work to the sorting process, the decision process, the parting with items, but talk a little bit more about how your background in social work has really prepared you for what you do today and how your approach might differ a bit from other organizers out there.
Yeah, so a lot of organizers are not social workers too. So I just happen to be in the minority where that is actually how I've combined my two life experiences, work experiences. So I'm going to do things just a little bit different. I'm going to dive in things more to find out, where you are emotionally, your readiness, what I need to do to help you in this process, to talk through things, because our stuff has a lot of memories that are attached to it, and not everybody's able to just let go just like that. It may take time. It will take some talking through. If I see that there's a little bit more in-depth things going on with mental health, then I'll connect you to the resources that maybe will help you with counseling and all the other kind of resources too that would help you to be ready for this process and the letting go part.
Yeah, that really is a big part of it. I think that you have to first, there are resources to help you get these items out of your home. But first, you have to mentally feel ready to do that. And that's the part that only you can do. And once you have done that part, then we can absolutely point you to the resources on the how. So, of course, we've talked extensively about all of the many benefits of downsizing your items, whether or not you ever plan on moving. But let's talk about what are the main areas that you would focus on when the goal was to assure that a home is safe and easily navigable, or if they just want to enjoy a less cluttered main living space.
Yeah, so when I start with a client, I usually start off with an assessment. So I walk through the spaces with you. I get to see it firsthand. What are the challenges? What is going well? Maybe there's some areas of the home that are worse than others. A lot of times clients are like, don't open that door because everything is in that room. Don't open it. And I'm like, let's open it. I want to see it. Let's go. And so we will go through the spaces. We'll figure out, what's the goals, what's the priorities, what are the hot spots. I look for clutter. I look for piles. I look to see, are there pathways that you're going through? And, because maybe you've had some physical challenges and you've done your grocery shopping, you've come in the door, you're exhausted, things are dropped right there at that point, and so maybe the groceries have been there for a week and you haven't had a chance to get them where they go. So I'm kind of looking to see those hot spots on where the piles are. Looking for health and safety aspect too. I used to sit on the Grand Rapids Hoarding Task Force, so I have some of that background too. So I look to see, are there safety issues with the kitchen or the bathroom? Those kind of things where it's a little bit more extreme. But not everybody's at that extreme level. They may be more at the, there's some clutter here and there. Maybe we need to look at, the throw rugs that are everywhere around. Those are going to be a trip hazard. I'll kind of bring in, some of my other resources like occupational therapy and those kind of things to just look at your spaces to see how are they functioning. So that's really what I do. Assess first, we prioritize, and then we dive into those spaces.
Great. So our belongings tend to take on a life of their own. One of the things I've noticed is that, a lot of times we've talked about, cluttered spaces, messy spaces, but oftentimes I work with clients in beautiful, well-organized houses where their boxes have boxes. My husband always teases me because I feel like, no, everything needs to be in a box. It makes me feel better, even if it's, you can fill your home with even organizational products to help you organize, but sometimes you just need to have less. So we're going to talk about what are the questions that you would ask a person who is determining whether or not to keep a specific item.
So the first question is, you have to think to yourself, is this a need or is it a want? Those are two different things. A need would be things that you have to have all the time, groceries, self-care items, paperwork that has to come in that you have to deal with. The wants are the things that you don't absolutely have to have every single day. And you may have more wants than you have needs. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of have to walk that line and you kind of figure that out. But then I also help clients, like if we're sorting through an area and we come up with an item and they're kind of not really sure where it falls on the need or want scale, I'll say, okay, let's look at from 0 to 10. 0 means that you don't have any attachment to it. 10 would be like, I have a lot of attachment to it. And I'll say, okay, tell me where you are with that. And if they say, oh, I'm about at a 4, I'll say, okay, so you're kind of leaning toward where you don't really need it much anymore, right? As opposed to, oh yeah, this is like a 10, it's off the scale, I got to keep this. So then I know, okay, then that's really important to you to keep. So we kind of use those tools to figure out if something has a lot of meaning. And then I usually ask my clients, okay, if there's something new coming in the house, where is it going to go? Is the closet already full? Do you already have 15 of these? So then we have to look at, okay, need versus want again, And sometimes that scarcity mentality comes into play where people keep buying because the world's going to end. And, we got the preppers and all of that going on. So, we got to really come back to where we are right now and then think about, what do I really need? What do I want? And how useful is the item? Are you using it all the time, or is it really sitting in a drawer and you use it once a year? So it's using your valuable storage space. So you only have so much square footage in your house, so you got to fill it with things that have a purpose and a place and is meaningful to you. And does it make you happy or sad?
Yeah.
That item. Are you keeping stuff out of guilt? That's a big one too, that we have to work through a lot.
Yes, I always emphasize that if you're keeping something that belonged to someone that you loved solely because, you feel like you have to and not because it brings you joy, we really encourage you to try and let that go, because I'm a firm believer that whoever that person is would not have ever wanted someone to keep one of their items out of guilt and not joy. So, and of course, one of the important questions is, if you got rid of that item, could you find it again at Goodwill for under $10?
There is something called the 20-20 rule, and that's where if you can buy something again for under $20 in 20 minutes, do you really need to have it on site right now? You can always get it later if you need to.
Yep. I think that's a great rule of thumb, because one of the things that I encourage people to think about is this idea that there is a cost to storing things, even in your home, even if you have the space. Now, what does that cost look like? It's cost to move it, to dust it, to, mess with it if you've got an area that needs to be worked on by a contractor, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I need to get in that room and move it all around before he can get in there. All those things are effort, and if you needed that item, would it be accessible for you to use? Or would you do what myself and my husband always do? And I'm like, I've got one of those widgets in a box somewhere, but I don't have time to go get that, so I'm going to go buy myself a new one. Anybody else guilty of that? I mean, seriously, I know I've got it somewhere, but unless it's accessible, easily accessible, I would turn around and buy it anyway, and then I have duplicates. How silly is that? So in the past, we've talked, a lot about the why, but today we're focusing on the how. So let's jump into some categories of stuff that you find in most homes and the best options for people to organize and downsize different types of specific items.
Yeah, and some of the items Laura put down here are like your medicines and electronics, paints and chemicals, that kind of thing. Well, in Kent County, you guys are super blessed here. I live in Berry County now. You guys have reimaginetrash.org. If you haven't gone to that website, write it down, reimaginetrash.org. And that's the Kent County recycling and waste removal system for the county. I did a behind-the-scenes tour back in April of what they do, and it is fabulous. I mean, it is state-of-the-art on how they handle your trash and recycles. But the main things, so like with medications, you want to make sure that they stay out of the landfill because it goes into our water supply. So we don't want that. So you want to look for where can you drop it off. So Meijer, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the pharmacies, Meijer, at their pharmacies, they have little disposal boxes. They're gray. They're right next to the pharmacy section, and you can put your unused medications in there. They just ask that you black off your name on the label and your address, but leave them in the bottles that they came in so they can see what they are. Okay. Walgreens, there's a few different locations that also you can drop. 60th and Kalamazoo has a drop box, and I think there's one on Plainfield. Not all of the Walgreens have them. And then your sheriff stations, police stations, usually have a drop box for things like your controlled substances. So keep those out of the landfill. Things like your paints and chemicals, Kent County, you have drop-off options in multiple locations. You got Wyoming, Kentwood, downtown Grand Rapids, where you can take your hazardous waste, and if you go onto that website, it'll tell you exactly the items that you can get rid of there. And you just pull right up, open your trunk, they take the things out, they say thank you, and you're off on your way, and it's out of your house. And that includes like all of your household cleaning chemicals and things like that too. The only thing they really don't want are your latex paints. What you need to do for those is open up your cans, put in some unused kitty litter or coffee grounds, get it mixed together, dry it out. Once it's dried, it can go right into your trash. So, but oil paints and stains and things like that, you do want to go through hazardous waste. Things like, walkers and wheelchairs and things like that. Those are a bit harder to get donated, but there's places like Disability Advocates that has a loan closet where they're able to take in, I've donated walkers to them before, where they will put it in their loan closet and then other people can utilize those. The other place that I've donated is Family Network of Wyoming. It's on 44th Street, and they also take some of the durable medical equipment for donation. So there are options out there, and just kind of Google it. Sometimes things pop up that I don't even know about, and and I'm like, yay, another resource out there, which is awesome. I think those were most of the items that we're going to hit on, but and batteries, that's the other one. Alkaline batteries can go right in the trash. They don't have the chemical anymore that they were trying to keep out of the landfill. So alkaline in the trash, but to recycling, you need to bring the ones that have lithium, nickel, rechargeables. Okay? All right.
I know I didn't have this on the sheet, but how about big light bulbs, like the
fluorescents?
Yes.
Those are hazardous waste. So
Okay.
you want to check on getting those to the hazardous waste drop off. I know like Home Depot and Lowe's and stuff will take the CFLs, the ones that are curly.
Oh,
They will take those because I bring those to them all the time, and they will recycle those.
great. There's also a place called Creative Mobility, I believe, that will take and recycle all of those ambulatory devices. So
Yes.
that's a whole another nonprofit. That's a great thing.
Laura, one more thing, electronics. So I do give Goodwill a lot of the stuff because I know they're one of the biggest recyclers in the nation. So I give them a lot of the electronics to recycle. But if it's something that's sensitive where you don't want your information to get out, like cell phones and things that you haven't swiped or laptops, Comp Renew is Grand Rapids. And they're a nonprofit as well, and they are I was behind the scenes for them too, seeing how they do their operations, and they are very strict on their data control, so of wiping computers and everything when you donate to them.
Yeah, they're excellent, and they're located right on Plainfield, and they'll do a lot of that recycling for free. Other items do have a cost, but even if you bring some of the larger items to like the landfill to be recycled, they will also charge you. So it's important to just know that there is going to be somewhat of a cost. So my nemesis at my house is paperwork. And what is your best advice on how to tackle it? And just remind us on some of the guidelines of how long you should keep certain items like taxes and other financial records.
Yeah, so paperwork, it's a time sucker. I would just give you that. When I'm working with clients, we usually leave paper as last because it just takes time to go through it all. On my booth out there, I had a tip sheet, which I'll have available out there as well. If we run out, you just sign up on my list out there, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of this. But what I usually find is that I follow the tips on paper retention from Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. And so my links are listed right on my paper retention guidelines. On how long do I keep my energy bill receipts, and how long do I keep my general receipts, or a lot of those things people are keeping forever and ever and ever, and you really don't have to keep those. It's really based on, do you need it for tax purposes to prove something that you purchased? Is it a big ticket item that you purchased that you're gonna need that receipt? You know, so there's ways to dive into it a little bit more, and those two sites for Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman actually give you a full list, which is very helpful. Things like taxes, that's a hard one for a lot of people too. I actually just printed this off from the IRS. My CPA told me that it's 3 years, and that's if you file your taxes regularly and on time. A lot of people are like, I've heard 7 years, so I feel better about that. I'll say, you keep as much as you want to keep. As my CPA always says, you don't give them more than what they ask for, right? You give them what they're asking for. So if you have not filed your taxes, or you have something fraudulent, something like that, you're going to have to keep all of your tax records. But for everybody else, if you've been doing it, between 3 and 7 years is what they're recommending for those records. Now, as far as keeping of paperwork, the paper that you do want to keep. So I'm in the generation where I'm kind of digital and I'm kind of hands-on with paper yet. So, and I'm going to be 59. So I don't know, does anybody else in this age range and older that is kind of in that where you're kind of got some things digital? Yeah. And some things in paper form. So there are scanning options. There's scanners out there like the ScanSnap. Fujitsu is a great scanner that you can get where you can scan your documents right in, and you can use something like Dropbox for the cloud where you can save a lot of your documents. If you're not comfortable with that, you go through the list to figure out what you really do need to keep, and then you just have a really good file system that's specific to your needs. Sometimes I set them up for clients where we do color coding, like green is for banking because it's money, red is for gotta act on kind of thing, so you kind of set it up based on what works for you for paper. But really it's weeding out the things you don't need and keeping the things you do need, and just having that list in front of you on what I really need and don't need. And look for those free shredding days, and I'm going to give a shout out to AARP. They got one this afternoon for a shredding day, so you can bring your shred stuff to them. So keep your eye out in the community for those free shred days, so you can move out the stuff you don't need anymore.
Awesome. And also, even the paper gators, those are a great option. Yes. Many of the churches and schools have those for any of the things that are not, with no sensitive information on them. So we certainly give a lot of stuff to that. So one of the questions I also get is the idea of those special collections, both family pictures and all of the other collections that maybe at this point in your life you don't need 100 Hummels. Maybe you only need a few. So what do you do with those types of things when you're working with your clients?
So I look to see what their collections are, and then I call people like Kellie, and I say, hey, are these worth anything? Should I have them put those aside? Since I've been doing this a lot of years, I kind of know what are the good things and not great things. And if there's somebody that are not necessarily going to be doing an estate sale, I have people that I'll send pictures to and say, hey, is this anything worth of any value? Is this something that you're going to want to sell for them? Or do I talk to Kellie and see if that's something she wants to sell for clients? Because, unfortunately, I see China every day, lots of it. And unfortunately, unless it's like a really, really super significant one, it's not going to be worth a lot. So, and you guys have heard me in different speeches say, when you have your stuff, if you have stuff that you want to pass on to your family, do the giving while you're living, so you're knowing where it's going. So it's not going to go in a dumpster after you pass away. So that's essentially what to do with those collections. I got to ask my people that are experts.
How about the photos?
Photos, oh boy, that's a hard one. So I don't organize photos. It is not my wheelhouse. But there's a website of all professional organizers that do photos. and they're called the photomanagers.com. They will take your photos and they will organize all of them by dates and put them in books and, you know, have great coffee table books that you can use, and you'll have, you know, like a nice history of that. You can scan your own photos. There are great scanners out there where you can just scan them yourself and put them right into the cloud, again, where you have access to it, your family members would have access to it. What I would say is go through as much as you can. If there's duplicates, get rid of the duplicates. If you can sit down with your family members or friends and just go through it and see if you guys are even remembering what those pictures were. You know, let go of the ones that you don't want anymore and don't make sense to you anymore. And the likelihood of anybody else enjoying those pictures as much as you in the future is not very high. So unfortunately, unless you scan them yourself or have somebody, a grandchild or somebody that's really good at doing that, scanning it for you, getting it out of the physical form into the digital form is the most recommended nowadays, just because it takes a lot of space. Thephotomanagers.com. Yeah, all professional organizers that are super trained on how to do photo organizing, and they're throughout the nation and world.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to open it up for a few questions. We've got a few minutes before we get into a couple of final things. I'm going to have a couple of our educational sponsors speak before we get into the fun drawing. So who has questions?
Oh, this question is for Susie. What's the charge? Do you charge hourly for your services?
I do. I have a flat senior rate, it's $55 an hour. And I do haul away all the donations that you don't want, and they usually end up at Goodwill, because they are the most convenient and open a lot. I will look for other donation sites too, but I will say I use Goodwill a lot.
Kelly, where is your store and how do I find out about your auctions?
The store is 5000 Marsh Road in Okemos, Michigan. So it's right by the Meridian Mall. And Kellie's shop is my website. So it's a little bit hard for me in transition because my business has always just been called Kellie's. But now that we're Blue Moon, Kellie's shop though is where we sell goods, because Blue Moon doesn't do auctions and pack and moves. They do estate sales. So I use them for my estate sale company. Excuse me, but Kellie's shop, it's KELLIES shop is where you can link to all of our sales, our auctions, store stuff, or our Facebook page.
Okay. And a suggestion, Susie, since I just had this problem, is I staple the receipt and the warrant card in the manual of the vacuum. I just had that, right? And stuff. So now the TV and everybody gets their receipt right in the manual,
Very smart.
instead of tearing the house apart looking for one.
Maybe I missed this, but did you say where you could get rid of mattresses or upholstered furniture? Someone say?
I am not 100% sure. A lot of places don't accept it anymore because of big risk of bed bugs is, but I think you'd have to contact, I don't have a great answer.
If there are beds that are in very good shape, sometimes the refugee programs will take them. I do have one contact for a refugee program that I will ask if they need any beds for that. But none of the donation sites will take beds, really. They, like the bed bug thing is not great.
And at estate sales, we sell them, and they actually sell very well unless they're the 30-year-old one in the bedroom that hasn't been used in a long time. But they do sell at estate sales, and if they don't, then our guys then do take them to the dump where there's a charge to get rid of them, but then they take them apart and recycle them properly.
So a question for Kelly. If we sell something on consignment, what percentage would the seller get?
Sure, it's a little bit dependent on what it is. So if you just have one thing and it's worth $20, it's 50%. If I'm selling a car for you, it's typically 90% to you. So it kind of a little bit depends on value, where it is, how much work it is to sell the item. So it's a little bit different.
most estate sales, if you can get it to the 8,000, it's 60% to the client, 40 to the company. So each one is a little bit different, depends on how much work we have to do to sell it.
There's a question up here. Okay.
This question might be for Kelly. My great-grandparents, I have held on things from them, from my parents, and it's things like plaques on newspaper articles, like when Kennedy was assassinated, a dress my mom wore. They've held on to this all these years. Are there places that will take it, even if it's a museum? I just really don't know where to go.
Newspaper articles are a little bit difficult because they printed so many of them, so unless it's signed by someone important, there's not a lot of value in some of the stuff unless it's signed. I will caution people, and I should have said this before, is that when you're working with an organizer or you're trying to decide what to do with your things, if you start saying, I'm saving this because Jimmy wants it, but did you ask Jimmy if he wants it? So people save stuff and save stuff and save stuff, and you know, in older things, then they just get ruined because they're not stored properly, and Jimmy didn't want them in the first place. So you just got to make sure that that's why it's better to do it now. Like if one of your children don't want it, then do something with it now. And it might be to the vintage reseller that wants the dress for the fabric to turn it into a pillow for her wedding. You know, you just don't know who might be looking for it. So I would hang on to it only if somebody wants it. If they don't, start looking for vintage resale stores locally, or myself. I mean, I'd be happy to look at it too. Some of the stuff will have value, most of it is more emotional. Nobody cares how much you loved it. They care how much they want it, so that's how much it's worth, but I'd be happy to look at it.
Just a quick comment. When you mentioned photographs and family materials like that, find out if you have a genealogist in your family and give them to them, because that's very important for family research.
I don't know if everybody heard that. He said make sure you check in your family to see if there's any genealogists in there, because they would probably like to have access to whatever history you have.
Hi, this is for Susie. Is there a list somewhere of all the places you listed, too fast for me to write down, of where to take different things, like where to take these kind of batteries, where to take these light bulbs? I mean, it was very helpful information, but I can't retain it.
You know what?
I didn't write fast enough.
I'm going to write a blog on that. I'll put it on my website. I don't have a list right now, but that's something that I probably should do, just have those resources. If my booth is in the back, so if you want to grab information from me afterwards, you're welcome to come back and grab it.
Yeah, and just a quick aside, both Kelly and Susie are financial or our educational partners for us who help in supporting this series. So at any time, visit their booth. They'll have additional resources, and any more of the information on the things that they do can be found through them. Many of our educational partners out there have their own newsletters and things like that they do themselves, and feel free to sign up for those. So that is going to be your best resource of getting that.